Stories are important not only for religion, but for society in its whole. Are we losing the big stories? Are we losing that in modern society after Enlightenment?
The big stories or the grand narratives disappeared. Maybe the only grand narrative that is remaining now is the grand narrative of the materialist view on man and the world. The grand narrative which says that everything started with the Big Bang and all the rest was a kind of a mechanistic consequence of that Big Bang. This grand narrative that believes that everything can be reduced to material processes. Even the feelings and thoughts in our head, human consciousness, within that grand narrative.
The ghost in the machine?
The ghost in the machine would just be an effect of the biochemical processes in our brain. That's what we seem to believe. The strange thing is that we believe that this idea is a scientific idea, but at the same time we see that science itself shows that this kind of thinking is very limited. It shows that the material particles itself are to a large extent a consequence of our consciousness, the other way around. That's what someone like Heisenberg concluded. He said, science finally concluded that Plato was right. Plato, who believed that the material world in itself is a kind of consciousness in itself, that all material particles are thought forms, he said. So we see that in that way, this entire materialist striving to reduce human consciousness to material processes actually can never be really successful. We believe that rational understanding is the most important thing in life, and that our society and all human relationships, human living together, should be based on rational understanding. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true. I believe that in the end, what science made clear is that rational understanding is extremely limited, and that we can only explain a very limited part of reality in a rational way, and that for the rest we have to move on and try to know the world in a different way.
To feel it more. Right?
To feel it more. Different scientists have articulated that in a different way. Someone as Niels Bohr said that in the end, poetic language has much more grip on reality and is much more important to understand reality or to talk about reality than logical language. It's hard to put in words. We have to feel it to a certain extent. That's exactly
that's it. Are we reaching the limits of speech?
This kind of knowledge that you could compare it to what the ancient Greeks called a techne, with which they referred to a certain technical knowledge that is more than just rational knowledge. For instance, if someone learns a certain craft, then first there is this stage in which he can learn the craft just by rational understanding. Someone can explain him, like you can do this in that way and this in that way. You have to go through these steps, to these protocols. When you start to feel what you have to do.
Creativity.
Yes, the creativity, and when there is this connection, there's this more intuitive connection with the objects that you're making, for instance, or with the performance of the art, it's at that moment that you reach a higher level of knowing, a higher level of understanding, which is much more a resonating knowledge.
There's another thing that's very important. The fear of dying in this materialistic world has grown.
It has grown, definitely. In our culture, we can no longer tolerate the idea of dying. It is as if dying doesn't have a place anymore in our way of looking at the world. As soon as you become aware that your logical understanding will never be sufficient, all these ideas can loosen up a little bit. There becomes a certain distance between the ideas, and you start to be capable, I think, to resonate, just like a string, almost literally. That's what I explain in my book on the psychology of totalitarianism, that the human body, in a certain way, truly is a string instrument.
Vibrates.
It vibrates. You have the muscles that are over the skeleton, and they can vibrate when you And close yourself in logical constructions. You stop vibrating and resonating with the music of life around you. All these things go hand in hand, I think. I think that it is at the moment that you can transcend logical thinking, that you start to be aware of the fact that there is much more than rational understanding. I think it's exactly at this moment that you start to resonate with the world around you. And it is at this moment that you start to feel something of the eternity of life around you. I always say the eternal music of life around you. And that's exactly what you need, I think, to just be able to tolerate the idea that once you will die, because you feel that you still participate in something eternal. Science is a wonderful thing, and we went through a wonderful process throughout the last few hundred years. But we also have to transcend it. We also have to go further. We have to realize that there is something beyond rational understanding. And that's exactly the fact that we sooner or later will die. And that's exactly also the moment at which we will be capable to really live this life. Because if you're too scared of death, you cannot live your life, fully live your life.
Some consequences gather. They gather around the fire. They came this way from far today to question and inquire. Evil spreads, somebody said, round here and over there. We could react to this attack if only we would dare to love, dare to understand, dare to care, dare to love a man, dare to love.